Hi, I'm RADHlA. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist, and I work at Austin Integrative Medicine here in Austin, Texas. You know, this morning I was getting dressed and I had the TV on in the other room and I was listening. I can't remember exactly what program. It might have been The View. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on this. But I think it was Whoopi. She made a comment. She said, you know, I think it was her. Somebody, anyway, they said, you know, if you want to get America healthier, first of all, take the high-fructose corn syrup out of their diet. And immediately my ears perked up and I went, wow, that's very astute. So I want to talk to you a little bit today about high-fructose corn syrup and what's going on in this country, because there's definitely, we're seeing a shift in our health in relationship to high-fructose corn syrup. Remember, for those of you who, grew up back in the 70s, junk food was just being sort of introduced, more and more soft drinks, more and more fast food restaurants started opening up. And for that decade, during the 60s and 70s, there wasn't really, even though we were consuming more junk food, there wasn't really a large progression of obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease. Remember in the old days when the Coca-Cola used to be like 6 ounces, and then it turned from 6 ounces to 8 ounces, and then 8 ounces to 10 ounces, and now it's at 12 ounces, and now it's in big gulps and stuff? Well, as we started to, as the junk food industry started to progress, we started to notice a real shift in obesity, diabetes, and the overall general health of the time happening about in the 1980s. And what we're seeing, the correlation there that was happening was the introduction of high fructose corn syrup in just about everything. Now, if you look at those soft drinks and you look at any products that are, packaged or processed, you're going to see a replacement from regular table sugar to high fructose corn syrup. So how did this happen, and what is it doing to us? Well, there's a lot of, information on the internet about high fructose corn syrup. Some of it's controversial. Some say, oh, well, it doesn't affect the body any differently than sugar. Others say, be careful of the dangers because it does affect the body. I've read a lot of studies, both pro and con for it, and we do see that it does affect the body differently than sugar. So it's really important to see why or how this came into the marketplace and why it's continuing. First of all, simple truth is it's cheaper. Corn is cheaper, and high fructose corn syrup is cheaper to make. Now understand that it's different than corn. Corn, the sugar from corn, is a fructose base, but this is called a high fructose corn syrup, which is different than regular fructose corn syrup. Basically, the way they make it is they extract the fructose from it, or actually the glucose from it, and then add a chemical to it to bring it back into fructose. So it's not a natural food, it's actually a synthetic food, and basically it does not affect the body the same as, say, the fruit or vegetable fructose that we see in natural corn or in natural fruits and vegetables. So it does create a lot of problems. I will go into that later on, and if you stay posted in the next few sequences I'm going to do a lot about carbohydrates in general. We're going to talk about how the body responds to it and why this particular hoopla about corn syrup and about carbs in general is really food for thought, if you will, of why this country has got a veritable epidemic in not only obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, but we're also seeing what we referred to, diabetes 2, we used to refer to as adult onset diabetes. We're now seeing children getting adult onset diabetes. And this is really, there's a great correlation between the kinds of foods and the kinds of junk food that they're eating today versus what we ate 30 years ago. Now, an interesting political aside that's really important for you to know, in my opinion, is that in 2002, this was in June of 2002, the present Bush administration signed a $190 billion Farm Subsidy Act. And what this means, guys, is that our government is paying farmers to produce more corn. Now, right now, we have a surplus of corn. We have more corn than we know what to do with. So why are we paying farmers to produce more? Well, it's kind of simple economics. It costs approximately $2 a bushel for corn. However, it costs the farmer about $3 a bushel to harvest, to grow and harvest. So what the farm subsidy bill is doing is it's taking our tax dollars, and every year we're giving about $14 billion for the next 10 years to farmers to grow more corn. So what we're doing is picking up the slack of that extra dollar. Now, you would think at first glance, you'd think, well, okay, this is helping the farmer, but why aren't we producing new kinds of incentives to get the farmer to be growing less corn instead of more where we have a surplus? Well, it's pretty obvious, because it brings the price of corn down. For who? Now, we're not talking sweet corn. We're talking about corn that is made into high-fructose corn syrup. Now, I do want to say an aside here that this corn is generally also genetically modified corn. So that's a whole nother story, which I'm going to talk about at another time. But as far as your health, that's a big concern too. But why do we want to reduce the price of corn? Are we seeing this in the market? No. But who's seeing it in the market? Pepsi-Cola, Coca-Cola, Mars, all of the big junk food corporations that are basically getting off of our tax dollar subsidies to buy cheap corn to make their high fructose corn syrup. So you may say, well, you know, I'm not paying for that. I'm not buying that junk, or I'm not eating that junk food, but guess what? Your tax dollars are still paying for that for everybody else. And while the public consumes that stuff, we are seeing a veritable epidemic of obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, etc. So even if you say, well, I'm not eating that kind of stuff, you're paying for it down the line. You're paying for it in your tax dollars. You're paying for it in health care in general. And so everybody's paying for Pepsi-Cola and Coca-Cola and the big junk food industries. So it's a pretty scary thing, and it's good for us to know. If you want to know more about this, you can go to my website, which is www.advancedhealthinstitute.com. Go to the articles section and look up the article Corn-Fed America, the politics of nutrition in the United States. It's an important thing that we should be aware of, and I'm really welcoming your comments on this subject or any other subject. I am going to be talking a lot about carbohydrates and our diet and things like that. We ask you to rate this, so I want to hear some ratings, some feedback, and if you haven't subscribed, please push that yellow button and subscribe. It's been great talking to you. Again, stay tuned, because as we go, I'm going to be back. I'm going to be talking all about your body and why the foods that we eat or the choices that we make are either going to be healthy for us or not healthy. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.